Hi guys, my name is Christian and welcome to this first episode of Gear Fight! So in today's episode we are going to compare two different microphones in two very different price ranges. First off we got the S.E Electronics X1. It's a large diaphragm condenser in a transformerless FET design. It is fixed cardioid and it has a 10 dB switch pad on the front. It retails for around $100 and is probably aimed for someone who is looking to purchase their first LDC. The second microphone is the shiny one here on my left. It's a Vintage Neumann M269C, which is the broadcast version of the more famous U67, which is known to be one of the best microphones ever made. Although it shares a lot of similarities with the U67, the M269C has a different tube which gives it a more open top end and a bit more mid-bite. Since it's no longer in production, you have to go onto the used market and the going prices are usually in the $8,000 to $12,000 mark. So in today's comparison we are going to use these two microphones on vocals. It's going to be one take, one performance, but I'm going to treat them a bit differently in the mix. And the reason behind this is just so you get a fair representation on how they actually sound and perform. Okay, so we got a $100 microphone and a $10,000 microphone. It's not a fair fight on paper, but it's going to be really interesting to see how they perform. So let's dive into the session and let's get started with the comparison. Okay, so here we have the session. I've already sliced up the vocals so it will be easier to do the actual comparison. The red one is the M269C and the green one is the X1. Let's move on to the mix window so we can take a quick look on the processing. We'll start with the M269. First we have an EQ with a low end cut, followed by a slight cut in the mids, and then a slight boost in the top end. This is followed by 3 compressors. They only do a tiny bit of compression, but you'll end up with a more smooth result if you compress in layers. And last, we got another EQ, a slight low end cut, and a slight top end boost. Moving on to the X1, this microphone did not have a lot of low end information, but I did feel the need to boost around 200 Hz to give it some more body and punch. And it was also quite bright, so this is me trying to tame those highs. This is followed by the same compressors and the same settings, but the microphones are very different in design, so I had to match the gain reduction by ear. Then we have an additional EQ, just a slight cut in the low mids, and then I tried to bring back the top end after the compressors, and also a slight cut here around 5000 Hz in a very narrow slope. And last but not least we have an de-esser to tame some sibilance. Okay, that's enough talking, let's get on with the test.
Best friends since 10, we were thick as thieves. Unstoppable, inseparable, we'd seize the day. But those days are gone, nothing left but scars. No, you played me for a fool, and double that or two. let's get it out of the way. So fuck you for fucking me over. How can we stay friends if you keep fucking me again? Fuck you for fucking me over. I can't play pretend, so I say goodbye to my former best friend.
Okay, to come to some sort of conclusion, I was pleasantly surprised on how good the X1 sounded on my voice, but keep in mind that my voice is fairly smooth and my experience is that cheap to mid-priced LDCs usually crap out when they are being pushed with some serious SPL. But in this particular case, I thought it sounded really good and I was really pleased with the results. On the downside, I did get some weird capsule ringing artifacts, and those artifacts really cut through the mix like nothing else, and they are pretty much impossible to get rid of. But for a retail price for around $100, I think it's a great value microphone and I could really recommend it to anyone who's looking to purchase a affordable, cheap LDC. The Vintage Neumann on the other hand sounded just as good as expected. I just had to cut out some low end and it was pretty much ready to go. So is it really worth $10,000? Well, I'd say no microphone is worth that much. And with the going prices of vintage equipment these days, I'd say that it's more of a collectible than anything else. But if you are an enthusiast with very deep pockets or a professional that have the clientele to support such an investment, I'd say go for it, you won't be disappointed, and the tube microphones from that era is really as good as it gets. Okay, that's all for today's episode. I'd love to hear what you thought about this comparison, so let me know in the comment section down below, and if you like this kind of content, hit subscribe and I'll see you around.